When I was 18, I got a job at Walmart. It was a small town, and there wasn't much else there for someone fresh out of high school. I had been working there for about a month in the jewelry department, usually from mid-afternoon until the department closed at 9 p.m. I would close the department myself, but obviously Walmart is open 24 hours, so other people were always around. One night, as I was locking the cases and putting things away, an overnight stalker walked by and said hi. I looked up, smiled, and said hi back, then went about my business. This guy, the only way I can describe him is to say he looked like one of the Bee Gees. Shoulder-length frizzy hair, kind of a bouncy hop to his step when he walked. He was in his mid-50s. This started to become a regular thing. On nights I closed by myself, he'd walk by, say hi, and I would say hi back. That's it. No conversations ever took place. Then on my birthday, a few of my friends who worked there got me cake, and I hugged them and said thank you, etc. About an hour later, Mr. Bee Gees comes around with a birthday card and gives it to my manager to give to me. The manager thought it was extremely funny that this weirdo got me a card, until I opened it. Happy birthday. I saw you hugging those guys earlier. It made me really mad, but I called a friend and talked it out, and he made me realize you're allowed to have friends other than me. Just please don't hug them anymore. Save those hugs for me. I don't know what kind of emotion showed on my face, but my manager grabbed the card, read it, then walked me back to the store manager's office and showed it to him. The store manager said the guy was obviously joking, but that he would talk to him about it. I didn't see Mr. Bee Gees for around a week, until one night while I was closing, he plunked down a stuffed envelope on my counter as he walked by without a word. Inside was 6 pages, front and back, of pure crazy. It was basically his entire life story, all about his family and schools he went to, but with weird stuff like how his sister was a psychic, and his father was an exorcist and all sorts of weirdness. The end of the letter was about how his friend who was 18 months old was missing, and he knew she was being raped because he could hear her screaming his name in his dreams. So that also went to the store manager, and he had me write a written complaint. He told me not to go outside by myself and not to wander near where the guy might be while I'm on my breaks. 2 nights later, I was finishing up for the night, and the way the counter is set up, there is one opening, and the counters go all the way around both sides. He brought a hand cart around with boxes for my department, but pushed it into the only opening in the counters, so I was trapped inside. He just stood there and stared at me while I looked at him with what I'm sure was pure terror. I was then, and still am now, riddled with anxiety. I don't like confrontation, and the last thing I wanted was for this weirdo to confront me about me reporting him. Twice. He whispers, "Sorry, didn't mean to scare ya." I turned around and started finishing my closing tasks, pretending he wasn't there even though I could feel him watching me. After a few minutes, I just looked at him and said, "Weren't you told to stay away from me?" He gave me this gross predator grin and said, store manager's name, asked me if I was joking. I told him I was. Then he leaned in as close to me as he could get with the counter between us and whispered, "But I'm not joking." Then he walked away. For 2 weeks after that, he would randomly show up wherever I was. I would leave for lunch, he would be there. Even non-work places. I would go to the mall, he would be there. Another department manager told me he had been reported by 4 other people over the last 2 years for very similar behavior. I again went to my store manager who told me the guy was harmless and maybe had a little bit of a crush. He was in his 50s, and I was 18 during this crap. A week later, I gave my notice and quit. A few days ago, I decided to go to Walmart to pick up a few things. That day, I was wearing a bright dress with sunflowers printed on it. I wore my hair down, which is also a brighter blonde color. As I was shopping, I went down the international aisle to grab mirin. As I walked down, I felt eyes on me. I stood in front of the shelves stocked with different sauces and condiments, looking for mirin when a guy came so close to me that I had to look at him. The moment we locked eyes, he smiled and said, "Hi, how are you?" I instantly felt uneasy, so I said nothing, smiled at him, and walked away. There's no particular reason the man made me feel uneasy. He looked fine. He appeared to be in his early to mid-30s, maybe a few inches taller than me, around 5 feet 8, and had brown hair. His dirty orange cut-off shirt and brown boots made me think he was in construction, but who knows? All I know is that he was weird in a way I can't put my finger on. After I walked away, I went to the complete opposite end of the store and kept looking around me. He was nowhere to be found for the next 20 minutes or so that I shopped, so I thought I was just overreacting. I started heading towards the checkout area, and once I got to the lines, I saw him standing right next to the refrigerators next to the checkout, staring at me. He had one item in his hand, so after we made eye contact, he walked towards the self-checkout area. I did a 180 and headed for the longest line I could find, thinking I could wait him out. It took about 20 minutes to get through checkout, and I dragged my feet walking out of the store, making sure the guy wasn't waiting for me inside. With him nowhere to be seen, I picked up the pace once I got outside. I started to think I was being irrational. He wasn't unattractive. He gave off no signs of actually being dangerous. I must be crazy, right? Walking towards my car, I saw a brown worker's truck waiting close to the exit start to drive around the parking lot once I stepped out of the store. I didn't think much of this truck at the time because I had thought the guy had left, and at that point I just wanted to get to my car because it was raining. I finished packing my trunk when this same truck started to pull through the spot diagonal from mine, slowly inching into the spot right next to my car, so that my driver's side was right next to the truck's driver's side. I heard the guy's voice say, "Excuse me," as I opened my car door. I quickly slid in, hoping I could just get away with him thinking I didn't hear him. I locked the door, turned the car on, and quickly turned it into reverse. I started pulling out, but before I could get far, the brown truck pulled forward and moved diagonally right behind my car so that I couldn't back up without hitting his car entirely. I looked in front of me and realized with a car in front of me, there was no way I was going to just drive out of there with no issues. I turned my head and saw the guy sitting in his truck with his window rolled down. I decided to roll down my window and asked, "What's up?" in a hostile tone. He began, "I just saw you in the store, you know, and you are absolutely so beautiful. I just had to tell you." "Oh, thank you," I said, praying he didn't get out of his vehicle. "I couldn't let myself walk away without asking for your number so that I can take you out," he told me. I picked up my hand with my wedding ring and told him, "I'm married." As he began to respond, I rolled up my window and stared at my steering wheel, waiting for him to move his truck. I couldn't stand to look in his direction because I felt his eyes on me. So after what seemed like the longest minute, I heard him finally move his truck. I peeled out of there in a heartbeat. The guy might have had great intentions. He might have been genuine. But I got a dark and heavy vibe that didn't sit right with me. So this happened about 13 years ago. I was 10 at the time, my brother was 8. We had just moved to a new town that year, and the Walmart here had this sweet arcade up near the service desk, so every time my parents would bring us grocery shopping, they'd give us each a few dollars and let us play in the arcade. The town had an incredibly low crime rate, and the arcade is at the front of the store where dozens of people are checking out, so what could possibly go wrong? My brother is playing the claw machine while I'm standing on the side of the machine, trying to help him angle the claw perfectly above a stuffed animal he's trying to get. Suddenly, this random hillbilly walks up to the claw machine next to us, inserts a quarter, and begins moving the claw around, but for most of this time he's making eye contact with my brother and smiling, not even watching the game. He's not talking to us, just staring and smiling. He has long, thin brown and silver hair, pulled back in a loose ponytail at the base of his skull, a camo trucker hat, and a long, scraggly beard. I remember vividly the way he smelled: stale beer, ashtray, and something that smelled like a sweet yet sour dirt or fungus. He tries making small talk with my brother and me, who were raised to be aware of strangers but still be polite. Eventually, we get bored of the game we're playing, and I usher my brother to follow me to a new game, on the opposite side of the arcade. A few seconds later, the man follows us, stationing himself, once again, at the claw machine next to us. At some point, an overweight lady walks in and says to the hillbilly, "What are you doing to these little kids?" and snickers at me. He replies, "I'm trying to win them some stuffed animals." She then begins playing the claw on the other side of us, so that my brother and I are sandwiched between these two strange hillbillies. His comment comes across as weird to me because previously I thought he was maybe trying to win something for his kids, but this entire time he'd just been following my brother and me from game to game, trying to win us toys. This has been going on for maybe 20 minutes at this point. They've followed us to several different machines and spent a lot of money. Each time my brother and I switched machines, they'd follow us. The hillbilly says to the lady, "I'm out of money. You got any?" She says, "Nah, I'm broke too." My brother says, "I have $1 still." Now this is the part that really scared me. I remember listening to these two talk about some weird things with us, asking if I have a boyfriend, asking where we go to school, where our parents work, asking if we've ever done drugs, etc. But when my brother said he had $1, she responded with the most terrifying thing I'd heard from them yet. The woman suddenly bursts out, "Well shit, then give it to him, boy." Her face was red. The tone in which she shouted was so ear-piercing and gut-wrenching that I could feel the blood drain from my face. My brother looked like he was about to cry. He hands her the dollar and her face lights up. She laughs it off, almost like she's trying to make it seem like she was joking when she yelled at us. My father walks up a couple of minutes later. As I turn to tell him that these people have spent close to $15 to win toys for us, they leave hurriedly before he gets a good look at them. My dad is livid. He takes us up to the front desk and tells them what I told him. They make an announcement on the intercom to keep an eye out for these people and to report to an employee if they see them. Then they call the police. I don't actually remember this part, or much of anything after my father arrives, but this is what he told me. They never did find the couple. The police reviewed security cameras, too blurry to make out any physical details, and told my parents that the couple left the store immediately after my father showed up, without any groceries. Every time I see a man or woman in Walmart that looks as I remember them, I get anxiety and try to avoid them.